Hello and welcome to this talk which I'm giving on behalf of the Friends of Nottinghamshire Archives as part of their Phonobite series. My name is June and I'd like to tell you about a Nottinghamshire convict with help of documents stored at the Nottinghamshire Archives. An old convict lay dying in the Newtown Charitable Institute in Tasmania. His name was William Kettleman and he was thought to be 90 years old. He died on the 9th of January 1894 and was buried the next day at the Cornelian Bay Cemetery in the Paupers section. So what was his story and why was he a convict? The story began in Nottinghamshire when William Kettleman was born in Radcliffe-on-Trent in 1809, making him 85 and not 90 when he died. His mother was Elizabeth Kettleburn, born in 1781 in Keyworth. At that time, Keyworth and the area around it were the hotspot for Kettlebans, Kettleburns, or any other variation of the name. There was no father mentioned. 3 years after William's birth, Elizabeth married Isaac Woodward at Keyworth, so William now had a father figure. It is difficult to know what William's early life was like, but it's likely that he was sent to work on the land as soon as he was able to, most likely as a young child. In 1830 he married Hannah Hill in St Mary's Church, Nottingham, and they had 2 sons, William and Isaac. Hannah died in 1834. He was remarried in Keyworth in 1836 to Elizabeth Toll, a widow. On the 1841 census, the family were living in rectory farmhouses in Stanton-on-the-Wolds, not far from Keyworth. He was an agricultural labourer and had 3 children, Isaac aged 8 from his former marriage, Mary aged 4 and Anne Toll, his stepdaughter, aged 8. But life was to change for the Kettleman family on Friday the 19th of May 1843 when Isaac was 10, and the events of that day would go nationwide. At this time, William and Isaac were working at a farm near Wysall owned by Henry Hebb. William as a waggoner and Isaac as a ploughboy. The farm was a mile outside Wysall with barns, stables and a large pond. I have been unable to locate this farm, but it is thought that it was on the Wymswold Road right at the edge of the village. I have found newspaper reports about the inquest and the court case and have put these together to tell the story. On the evening of Friday the 19th of May 1843, Isaac Kettleman went missing. Isaac had driven the plough for Joseph Simpson earlier that day. The horses were stabled by 2:30 p.m. and Joseph left Isaac at the stables. Isaac returned home for his dinner at 3 p.m, then went back to the barn. His mother, Elizabeth, said he seemed quite cheerful. Later that day he played with William Elliot, who then left him and went to play on the road. Elizabeth was described as an exceedingly clean, decent woman. She recollected her husband going out for coals Friday morning. He returned home about 4 o'clock and came in. He asked if the boy had been to his dinner and she answered yes. He had something to eat. He was not sober and came in a terrible passion about something. He was in a rage. He continued his passion so long as to knock her down on top of the little girl. After this, William seems to have gone out several times and said he was looking for Isaac. Francis Frisbee, a farm labourer, saw William at the barn about 6:30 p.m. and he appeared to be blocking the door. William asked if Francis had seen Isaac, then said he must have gone bird nesting. Francis went home. On looking back, he saw several horses in the yard, although William had said it was too cold for them to be out. William was seen several times that evening at the farm and returning from it. John Elliot, who lived in Wysall, was up with a sick child at 4 a.m. the next morning. He saw William pass his house on horseback and spoke to him. On his convict records, William was described as 5'5" tall, swarthy complexion, black hair and whiskers and dark eyes. He had a scar on his left leg where a horse had kicked him and a scar under his right ear from a broken jaw. He could read and write. We can get an idea of William's character from witnesses at the trial and what poor Isaac had to put up with. Mary Walker, the wife of John, a carrier of Keyworth, said she used to live near William. She had often seen him kick and beat his son cruelly and heard him use abusive language towards him. Once she saw Isaac running down the street dressed only in his shirt with his father following, then heard a cry as though someone was being beaten. John Hallam was a labourer who lived in Wysall. About 2 weeks earlier, he had seen William beat his son with a whipstock and had frequently seen him pelt Isaac with stones, which injured him. Once he saw William throw a plough paddle at Isaac, and he often kicked him violently. Isaac would sometimes run away from his father to avoid injury. Others said that William beat Isaac, but not the two girls. 2 or 3 years earlier, Isaac had tried to hang himself and had said that he wished either he or his father were dead so his misery would end. Isaac would run away from his father and would often stay away from home for several days. According to witnesses at the inquest and the trial, William acted strangely over the next few days. He seemed loath to go out to look for Isaac, although he did on the Sunday. Elizabeth sent her daughter to Keyworth, but said she found nothing. William went with Elizabeth to look for Isaac on Monday, visiting Shelford and Keyworth. He got out and waited while she drove up and asked about the boy. He dare not go into the house because he should be taxed with his cruel treatment of the boy. When they got to Plumtree, she wished to call on her cousin, but he told her not to tell what she had been out for. At the farm, William twice asked a fellow farm labourer to trample on crops in the barn. Later, he turned 6 horses in the pond instead of the usual 2. His fellow farm workers were obviously concerned about the disappearance of Isaac and repeatedly suggested dragging the pond with a rake. William kept saying that Isaac would not be there and would walk away. On Tuesday, 4 days after Isaac had last been seen, the farm workers again suggested that William should drag the pond. So he went to the pond with the workers and a wooden hay rake. He began to drag the pond but did not rake thoroughly. He put the rake in 2 or 3 times, but always carefully at the same spot. They all went back to work and William went out, supposedly to look for Isaac. After a while, some of the farm workers decided to rake the pond again and soon found the body 4 or 5 feet from the edge. Isaac's cap was missing, so the pond was drained and it was found at the bottom. The body was taken to the church. When William returned, he heard that Isaac had been found in the pond. He seemed bewildered and told his wife to send for a joiner to make a coffin. He asked whether there were any marks on the body and said that if there were, the horses would have done it. He thought Isaac must have fallen into the pond while playing with the rats. William said that he wanted Isaac to be buried, then everything would be all right, and went to find the vicar. The inquests were held at the Plough, whose landlord was Isaac Baldock. The first one was held before Mr. C. Swan, the coroner, on Wednesday the 24th of May. The verdict was accidentally drowned. Owing, however, to very suspicious circumstances, consisting of the father being seen in his company a short time before he was missing, of his general brutal conduct towards the deceased, and his frequent wishes for death, the farmers of the district were not satisfied, and on Wednesday they sent for Mr. Benjamin Webster Brown, surgeon of Wymswold, to examine the body, no surgeon having then seen him. Mr. Brown examined the body, and his conclusion was that although he could find no marks on the body, the neck was broken and had been when the body entered the water. When William heard this, he coloured and seemed quite staggered. Mr. Swan, the coroner, was sent for and a second inquest was held. 12 local farmers comprised the jury. William was arrested by policeman Burrows and was taken to the county jail. On the following Monday, the inquest resumed. William was brought from Nottingham and was kept in heavy chains and handcuffs. His wife sat with him most of the time. The examiners were Benjamin Webster Brown, Mr. Thompson, surgeon of Nottingham, and John Calthrop Williams, physician of Nottingham, who worked at the General Hospital and Lunatic Asylum. William was questioned and said little. "I have nothing to say, only that I have not done it, and that is all I have to say." In conclusion, the jury did not think they had sufficient evidence to commit William for willful murder, but they believed that the death was caused by some person. William was discharged. I have not managed to find out why and when William was arrested again and taken to the court charged with killing Isaac. The trial took place in the Winter Assizes in Nottingham on the 19th of December 1843. The judge was the Right Honourable Sir James Park. The trial went on all day, and towards the end of the afternoon the judge decided to carry on into the evening. Summing up was done and the jury retired at 11 p.m. Half an hour later they came back with the verdict, guilty of manslaughter. In the judge's summing up he said the jury had been very merciful, and had it been left to him he would have been passing the sentence of death. This was a brutal, wicked act, and deservedly heaped upon him the full penalty of the law, which was that of transportation for the term of his natural life. There is some information about the rest of William's life. He sailed to Norfolk Island on the Blundell, leaving London in March 1844 and arriving 102 days later. There were 210 convicts of the worst class on board. The convicts were taken from Millbank Prison, where they had been held, down the Thames by steamship to the ship that was moored off the Kent coast near Deal. There was a new system for the convicts sleeping on the ship. Each prisoner had his own berth measuring about 20 inches wide and sufficiently long. The prisoners could, therefore, leave their bed without climbing over others. The ship docked at Norfolk Island, where William spent 4 years. In 1847 he was sent to Van Diemen's Land. He gained his ticket of leave in 1854, which meant he could work for himself within a certain area, reporting regularly to local authorities and attending church on Sunday if possible. He could not leave the colony. In 1859 he was recommended for a conditional pardon, receiving this in 1860, meaning that as he had a life sentence, he had the freedom of the colony but could not return to England. William died at the Newtown Charitable Institute, supposedly aged 90. He was buried in the paupers section of the Cornelian Bay Cemetery. So it's up to you now to decide whether this was murder or manslaughter. And to end, I should tell you that William was my first cousin 5 times removed. If you'd like to know more about this story or about Fona, have a look at our website, Facebook page or email us.